Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Creatives in Conversation, Creating Art and Driving Activism in 2020. I am Natasha Lettner, the Communications Director for Greater Together. And I want to say that this event is part of our Creative Together Challenge initiative with Greater Together. And it's just to drive home our mission, which is, inspiring the creative professionals here in Milwaukee to create a more diverse future, to realize that there is talent out there, in the Black and Brown communities here in Milwaukee, and, opening those doors and creating those opportunities. So this summer we started the Greater Together Creative Challenge, and we had 8 amazing emerging talents with their creative advisors create some amazing short films on their experience this 2020. So this evening you'll be hearing from them and their creative advisors on, what inspired their films, what inspired their journeys. And with that being said, I'm going to pass the mic over to our Mistress of Ceremonies this evening, Kara of Milwaukee Film.
Thanks, Natasha. I'm Kara. I'm the artistic director at Milwaukee Film. And, I want to welcome you all on behalf of Milwaukee Film to this showcase, in a different version of 2020. You might imagine that we're at the Oriental Theater and we've just watched incredible short films together, and we're about to be joined by 5 of the 8 filmmakers with work in the showcase to sort of chat through that process. So you can kind of take yourself into that virtual space of the cinema, sniff that popcorn smell, kind of imagine that you're there. And we can't do that, which is the thing we all want to be doing, of course. But when Greater Together approached us about like, how could we help support this showcase, we got creative, and we're really thrilled to be able to help showcase these films, to put them on our virtual platform through Sofa Cinema, and then to be able to host this evening's Q&A session, which will be available after this evening. If you are missing us live, catch us on the replay on YouTube. Milwaukee Film, equally with Greater Together, wants to celebrate and uplift new voices, right? To find the new storytelling voices that are going to help tell the real stories that are important here in Milwaukee, and, globally, frankly. So it's a real honor to be able to get to talk to these creatives sort of at this moment with these projects, and to sort of reflect on our year together, which is, I think, in watching the showcase, I think we see a lot of difference, but so much kind of shared experiences that I think everyone can find a moment of relationship to. This evening, we're going to sort of meet each filmmaker and their mentor, who are going to do a little bit of dialogue about the film. And then at the end, I'm going to bring everyone back on stage, on screen, for a bit of group Q&A. So if you're watching us live on the internet, feel free to throw your questions and comments in the chat wherever you are. Those will make their way to us here, and we'll try to fold them in at the end as we get into a little bit of more free-form discussion. Those are my housekeeping bits and pieces. I'm really excited to hear from each of these filmmakers. And our first filmmaker that I'd like to welcome is Alexa Gerardo with creative advisor Santana Coleman to talk about the film 2020.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Santana Coleman. I am the mentor for the film 2020. And I guess you can introduce yourself, Alexa.
Hi, I'm Alexa. 2020 was my first real film, so this is really exciting for me.
Okay, so we're going to jump right into the interview. So Alexa, can you tell us about the name of your film and what it's about?
Yeah, so it's pretty self-explanatory. 2020 is about kind of a culmination of what 2020 is and what it's kind of meant to different people.
And why did you choose to make it about that?
Well, this year was kind of it was kind of a life-changing one for me, and it was especially important I don't know, for people my age who, it was my first election that I voted in this year. And so for people my age, I think there was just so much that happened this year that like we needed to consider when voting. Um and aside from that, just like so many events that might have changed people's outlooks or their plans for the future.
And what do you hope viewers will take away from watching your film?
I really hope that people kind of take away a message of hope because I don't know, at the time I was making it, it didn't seem like there were any, and now that there's like vaccines coming out, I think there's a lot more, but even in bleak situations, like good outcomes can come from it.
And what have you learned during this process?
There's just like when I look at filmmaking, there's just so many bits and pieces that like I either don't like to do or never considered. And so that's kind of really grown me as a filmmaker, and I'm really excited for what the future holds in that regard.
Are you going to make another film?
I hope so.
Okay, and besides making another film, what's next for you?
I'm just hoping to continue to have cool experiences like this in the city of Milwaukee, and I hope that other students at Marquette or UWM or wherever they go to school are able to take advantage of opportunities like this one.
Okay, great. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, what have you learned working with me?
So that's kind of a tough question because honestly, you were so easygoing and you already had a whole bunch of knowledge of like what to do, what you wanted. I feel like you knew exactly, what you wanted from this pretty much. You knew how to do everything, and I really was just here as backup and support. So it's kind of hard to say specifically what I learned, but I definitely did enjoy the experience. I signed up for this because I enjoy helping emerging creatives and filmmakers. And I'm not at the super top of my career yet, but I definitely enjoy, just kind of giving people the knowledge that I've learned so far. So it was definitely very easy, very nice to work with you. And I'm always here if you need any additional help on future projects. So
Oh, thank you.
you're welcome. All right. If do you have any more for me or no?
Not really.
Okay. Well, cool. So I think we can go ahead and pass it back off to Kara.
Thanks so much, Santana and Alexa. I'm really warmed by the, just sort of the mutual appreciation of one another as artists. That feels like you were more of colleagues than maybe kind of in a traditional mentor-mentee relationship, which I think is really inspiring as well. Our next filmmaker is Julian Singh with creative advisor Carlos Ruelas to talk about the film How to Stay Musically Creative. Julian and Carlos, turn it over to you.
Hello, I'm Carlos Ruelas, mentor of Julian Singh.
Hello, I'm Julian, and I am the filmmaker for How to Stay Musically Creative during 2020.
How you doing, kid?
I'm doing well right now, yeah.
That's good, man. All right, so I got some questions for you. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why did you choose to make the film about what you chose?
Part of the main reason is because music is such like a big influence in my life. It's practically like all I'm doing all the time. And when the pandemic hit, that really sucked because there were no more live gigs. There's no collaborating really in person with others, and it was really difficult for me, but also for a lot of other musicians who were kind of struggling to get that same feeling that they did when it was back to normal times. And I feel like my experiences during the pandemic and my learning of how to use software and online to create music as well definitely could help other people who are in the same situation as me to kind of get through those hurdles.
What did you learn from the process of making this film?
I'd probably say the biggest thing that I've learned is kind of the whole process for making films. It's not as straightforward as I usually do it because I make videos all the time, but typically, I mean, they're just kind of for fun. And I do one kind of edit of them and then post it. Whereas this one, I kind of had to like storyboard it, come up with an idea, and then execute the idea and have like revisions over it, which was definitely a new process for me, but definitely informative of how real films are made.
Okay. Are you going to make another film, and what would it be about?
Um, I mean, yeah, I'm making movies all the time. Typically, I just make movies about silly stuff that just keeps me engaged. But I would like to maybe further make another sort of documentary film like this one, documenting my journey as well from the start of my musical career to where I am now. I'd say that's probably the next step.
What else do you have going on other than this film?
Right now, it's mainly applying for colleges, seeing where I can get in, trying to play with my bandmates as much as possible, because I'm definitely missing all the live interactions that I used to have. Um, Working, but yeah, those are about it.
Okay. Um, you have any questions for me?
Yeah. So I guess the first question would be, what is the biggest thing that you learned from this whole experience?
Mm, there's a lot of talent in Milwaukee. A lot of creativity. You yourself, you're very intuitive. You know, um, you had a vision for it. Kind of just needed a little steering in the right direction. But I see the talent with those drums. Uh, you know, uh, Looking to see Milwaukee get more known for this stuff. You know?
And I guess another question to follow that one up, but what do you have any other plans to maybe create films of your own or do similar projects like this in the future?
At the moment, I got a project I'm working on, and gonna be putting together a couple of films for that. So I'm looking to get those going. Just look to the future, look to hoping this pandemic goes over, and getting back on stages, and you know, getting us out there for Milwaukee.
Right, exactly. Well, also, thank you for being a good mentor here. It was really a fun experience and very insightful. And I think we can hand it back over to Kara here.
Thank you too, man. You take care.
Thank you, Julian and Carlos. We just gotta, keep going and then get back to showing off what Milwaukee's doing. I love that message. There is deep talent creatively in film and a lot of arts. And yeah, how do we get Milwaukee more on the map for that is like all of our goal, I think, and question as we step into the future. Our next film is Asking Nothing of Nobody with director Isaac Izard, whose last name I may have totally butchered just there, with creative advisor Damar Walker. Isaac and Damar, he'll join me on screen. Welcome.
Hello. How's it going?
Thank you, Kara. Isaac, what's up, man?
Not much, just hanging out, chilling in the Zoom meeting.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
I'm Jamal Walker, Artistic Director of Coty Dance Company. Isaac, can you just tell people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Isaac Izzard. You only missed by a little bit, Kara. I recently graduated from UW-Madison and kind of still in Madison, waiting out the whole pandemic situation. So yeah, that's what I got going.
Nice. You were a film major, correct?
I was. That's the short title. I got a degree in communication arts with a focus on radio, film, and television. So it's a mouthful.
So you got to tell us about this film because it's been quite the journey. So inform the people about this film that you created.
It's called Asking Nothing of Nobody. It originally started out as a very, very different idea. I ultimately ended up writing the script as a part of my senior project right before I graduated. Initially, the senior project was like going to be to make a really long short film. And I was like, I got the director, like I was assigned the director role in my class. But with COVID, that whole project kind of got shut down. So, we were tasked with either telling a story in our homes or writing a script. And I chose to write the script and eventually became the film that's in this showcase.
Nice. What inspired you to do this film?
Oh, man. Well, I guess to just to describe the films that I like films that I can watch and sort of like see the director's like thumbprint on it, I guess, or like their DNA. And I aspire to make movies like that. And I think with this one, I sort of just tried to take where I was emotionally at the time, and sort of like compartmentalize it and like pretend like it was happening to somebody else a little bit, and then sort of flesh out this whole story around that. So, I guess it was inspired by my own feelings and my own emotions, and it kind of grew and changed as I worked on it over time. But I think that that's still an aspect that's in there. There's a little bit of me in this film.
Nice. Now, we had really great conversations about Black manhood, specifically around masculinity. And I want to know, thinking about all of what's going on in the world, why do you think a film like this is really important for people to see?
Well, again, like I said, there's a lot of me in this. And in this film, I really wanted to highlight the pitfalls and advantages of being on either extreme. Like you can be too masculine and it'll turn into toxicity. And if you're maybe not masculine enough, things that you want or things that things or people that can help you in life are going to slip away. Opportunities can slip away. And I was just sort of exploring that whole aspect, and that sort of came from a place of having this big film that I was working on as my senior project, having it get shut down. I was sort of reflecting on like what could I have done better, and a lot of the feedback I got was like that I was a little bit too passive. So I guess that sort of expounds a little bit more on the core idea, that maybe if I had pushed a little harder for some of the things that I thought were good ideas and, really just trusting in my own process and vision, then, that movie would have come together a lot smoother. So I don't know. I was in a very reflective space when I was writing this.
Yeah. Is there something real briefly you could touch on as far as what you learned about yourself in this process?
What I learned about myself? I don't know. I think I'm still a work in progress in terms of learning things about myself, but I can say to sort of like wrap up the whole masculinity question. I think that somewhere in the middle is where we should exist. You shouldn't be too forceful, but you got to be a little bit, or people are going to take advantage of you or not take you seriously or whatever. I think that there's some middle road there that I think I want to try and strive for. You know, like naturally I'm a little bit of a softer, more passive person, but you know, I think I really need to not be afraid to go for what I want and express that and communicate like this is my vision, these are my goals, and just going after them. So yeah, I think there's a middle ground here.
Nice. So you got movies that you're working on. I know that you told me about.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for you and just your future and all of that as a young filmmaker. You have any questions for me?
I don't know. I was kind of thinking ahead of time, like if I had any. I guess if there's one, like, you know, imagine if like the roles were reversed. If you were sitting in my seat, if you were like, you know, early 20s, if you could look back in time, is there any advice that you would give yourself as a creative, you know, that you would have liked to have heard, kind of, if you were in my position?
Yes, real quickly, I would just say if I were you, being a young filmmaker, I would say trust your intuition. You know what you know, and it is uniquely your own, and it will lead you to anything that you ultimately want to do. Isaac, I'm proud of you, dude, and you did an amazing film. And I just can't wait to see more from you. So shout out to you. Kara, back to you.
Thank you so much, Isaac and Damar. And I know I asked before we got started if that was a storyboard project happening behind Isaac there, and it is. So I assume we're going to see a next project coming along at some point here. You know, maybe not too quick because films don't make themselves, but I also like that message of trusting intuition. And I was going to say, I am also a work in progress, and I am a little bit older than my early 20s. So I'm just going to celebrate everyone being a work in progress. I feel like we have to just accept that. Our next film that we'll be discussing is the film Greater Together with director Alexis Alexander. Alexis's mentor couldn't be here this evening, so I get to ask the questions, but I'll ask Alexis to join me on screen. Hey. So can you tell us a little bit, Alexis, first about kind of your inspiration for the film Greater Together and that title, whose inspiration feels maybe obvious, but maybe dig into it a little bit more?
Yeah, so honestly, I really didn't put too much thought into the title. I'm not gonna lie about that one, but it was basically like they said, tell how you experienced 2020, and that's what I did because I have never made a film before. I mean, I just graduated college, and film was never anything I actually was like, oh, I'm gonna get into that. But I was like, okay, I wanted to do something different, but I just told it from like a real life perspective of this is what's going on. This is the part that I feel like I need to play, and this is your video. So it was really interesting putting it all together. I had so many different thoughts that I wanted to put into the video, and my advisor was like, okay, so what is your main point of this? I'm like, I don't know. So it definitely took me a while to put it all together. My video, I actually didn't even watch my own video on the Milwaukee Film website. I didn't get to mine yet, but you notice it is vertical, and it was all like shot on my phone, like everything from it. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I think that I was inspired by in your film is sort of that you found this important thing that I think a lot of us have noticed in 2020, but like the way that art can serve as a connection. I think a lot of the films in the showcase sort of pick up on ideas of connection and disconnection and isolation, perhaps for obvious reasons, since we're living in this year. But can you talk a little bit about your hopes for how the constraints, perhaps, that 2020 has laid on artists might be opportunities to increase connection, increase creativity? What are you hopeful for in that space?
Yeah, so I think that there is so much going on with like, there are so many different ways to be creative. And I think me coming out of like my undergrad and I'm thinking, hey, like I really, really want to be creative, but I see so much talent out there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am not even half as creative as that person. But these people really do inspire me to, you know, advocate for them. And that's ultimately what I wanted to show in my video, that I am advocating for these other artists. I want everyone in our community to do well. And I think so many people have, you know, stepped out of their comfort zone, and it really shows. Like even under these hard times that we're all going through, like we can still express ourselves and say what we want.
Yeah. And I think, you know, helping other people tell their stories, helping facilitate that, helping curate that, helping, I don't know, monetize that. You're helping artists sell things. Let's not diminish that, you know, is an act of creativity. It's just one that maybe comes less sort of down the middle of the lane and a little bit more from the side. As someone who, you know, curates, I would like to think that it's creative to, you know, lift up other creative voices as well. Or what are you working on now? Are you working on more films? You said you don't consider yourself a filmmaker before. Are films sort of a path that you want to go in terms of documentation, projects that you're working on?
So honestly, I took the underlying meaning of my video and advocating for others, and I'm actually studying to take the LSAT to go to law school. So that hopefully is what's going to happen. My exam is next month. I probably should be studying right now, but I did want to get on here, and I did watch other people's videos, and everyone did so good, and they told their story how they thought it should be told. So yeah.
I think, you know, I mean, the LSAT itself perhaps doesn't, but I think, you know, we want lawyers who also are like connected to art and culture and can talk about it and think about it. So I think you get a pass for not being studying for like this one evening. We'll give you a little bit of a break, a little refresher. Questions that you have for me? I obviously didn't work with you throughout the process here, but any questions that you would have?
Sure, yeah. So you say you are from Milwaukee Film, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, you work with Milwaukee Film. What is your position there? What do you do? What's your title?
So I'm the artistic director, which means I don't make all the decisions about what we put on screen, but I sort of support the folks who do. So whether that's films that we're putting on screen at the cinema, at the, you know, during the festival, currently in our virtual cinema, Sofa Cinema, all those places, as well as our education programs. So, you know, one of the reasons I'm really excited to, you know, be in this conversation is, you know, that learning about filmmaking at whatever stage you are, whether you're, you know, an emerging creative, an established creative, there's always that learning to be doing, right? We're always sort of pushing ourselves further. And, you know, I, you know, care deeply about that work as well. So sort of oversee all those folks and all those programs that help, you know, tell more stories, whether they're from our city or from elsewhere, you know, using film to make us all better. That's lofty, but you know, I believe it. Right? You get insight into someone else's experience through film, whether that's an experience that's really relatable, and you're like, oh, I'm not alone. Like, oh, I get that. You know. Or whether it's something that's really different and you are able to sort of step outside of your own worldview or your comfort zone and experience something else. So I don't make things, but I like to make experiences for other people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. What's one film that you think we should be watching at Milwaukee Film? Like, what's your film of the year, you think?
I'm gonna go off brand and not tell you to watch something that we're currently watching, but last night I finally got to watch Garrett Bradley's Time, which is streaming on Amazon right now. It's a documentary about kind of carceral justice and time, like in all of its forms, right? Like doing time in the form of like being imprisoned, which is like the core, you know, family plot line that the film follows, but it really thinks about like decades. It thinks about aging. It thinks about, you know, children growing from childhood to adulthood, It's beautiful. Everyone needs to watch it. It's required viewing for 2020. If you have Amazon, and if you don't, find someone who does.
Okay.
Time by Garrett Bradley. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Alexis, for your film and for your time this evening. And we're going to all think good thoughts about your LSATs for like 3 weeks, for good measure. Is that about good? All right, excellent. Our final film for this evening is the film Soar, which was directed by Naya Noel with creative advisor Ann Kohler.
Hello. Hi, Aya.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
My name is Ann Kohler, and I'm an artist and author of Free to Feel. And I was blessed and honored to be with Aya near the tail end of her project. So I'm kind of one of two mentors for Aya. And I'm so happy and proud to be here and to ask you some questions about the film that is something that is really important for the world to see. I know that this is a film, but it's also a story. There's a story behind it of how you created the film and wrote the song and made the music. Could you tell the viewers a little bit about that story and how the film was inspired?
So the film was inspired by my own personal experiences with my mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I just decided that we don't have a lot of narratives about mental health, especially within POC communities, and how that looks like in families, how the conversations may look like. So I decided to put that out there and hopefully encourage other people to start those conversations within their families.
Beautiful. And can you talk a little bit about the specific focus of the film within mental health?
Sure. So the focus, I would describe it as a focus mainly on anxiety. I have a personal struggle with anxiety, and I really had to brainstorm on how I was going to translate that as a music video and as a song. So I really tried to dig within myself and think of the times where I have physically and mentally experienced anxiety and how I would communicate that to my mother.
Yeah, when we first met, you told me that it was a kind of a letter to your mom about how to help you through anxiety. And I found it's just so incredible that someone your age can think that through about the other side. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that conversation was, and maybe how it's been throughout this time building and writing that song and the movie? And has that conversation around anxiety with your mom changed at all?
Yeah, so my inspiration for starting this was my own conversation with my mom. So I think that I actually talked to my mom about while I was writing the song. So I was able to take from our own conversation and apply it to the song. And I'd say that I would say that we have a pretty solid communication with each other, but putting that into a song, which we both are very involved with the arts and songwriting, it's a very beautiful and healing experience. So yeah.
What would you say to people who are struggling with anxiety right now? The statistics are staggering of how many people are really struggling with anxiety and isolation and even depression and sadness. What would you say to people about how to deal with anxiety and some hope for them?
So I would say that I think, like, if I go back to what I was saying about starting the conversation, I think that the main thing I wanted to encourage people to do was to even start the conversations within themselves, because I think that's the first, that's the start to beginning to have more conversations outside of yourselves. But I want people to feel like this is normal. Anxiety is normal. We all have instances where we get anxiety, we get nervous, and that's fine. I think often, especially within POC communities, we have the need to try and keep everything within ourselves and not to reach out. And you can always reach out to people. And if you feel like you don't really have a solid support system, I know that there are other symptoms, sorry, systems in place like therapy, or a lot of programs that center around mental health and POC people. So I would say that it's normal. You can get help and you're not alone.
Thank you for that. My final request, you can sing. Girl can sing. You give me chills.
Thank you.
When you sing. Can you just sing one line from the song? Even if you want to turn your camera off, but I just feel like the viewers could get one live line from your beautiful voice and heart.
Sure. Okay, I'll sing from the chorus. No more drowning. I've found grounding. Take me back to the shore. I found wings to soar.
Yay, mic drop. Amazing job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for working together. Wow, I love it. And
thank you.
I think we can end it there unless you have any questions for me, but you're so inspiring. I'm so grateful to have worked with you.
Thank you so much.
Let's hand it back over to Kara. There we go.
And I'm going to ask everybody, all the filmmakers and mentors, to join us on screen here as we get into a little bit more of a group Q&A. I have a question that I want to start with and ask of the filmmakers. Whoever wants to respond to it, you don't all have to, but maybe some of you want to. I think so many of the films, resonated with my own experience, even though I am having a different lived experience from each of you, there was a lot sort of human connection, longing for human connection, this sort of mental health, sort of concerns that are part of so many people's lives this year, historic moments and mundane, like everyday moments, so much to kind of relate to and grab onto. There's a lot of aesthetic choices, as the film person's going to ask you about the filmmaking question, right? I noticed a lot of, throughout all of the projects, a lot of nods to kind of retro or nostalgic or like old school film things, whether that's black and white, right? Like real basically just, I chose to film this in black and white, or to show this part in black and white and this part, these effects that look kind of like old film. Does anybody have like thoughts about why you may have kind of gone to these older, more traditional, more conventional modes, while obviously like making very new, very fresh, very now, and all digital films? Like none of you shot this on film, right? I don't, I'm assuming. Any thoughts on like why sort of lean way back into those earlier moments?
I'd like to answer that if I could.
Please.
Yeah, obviously my film is in black and white. In terms of why, it might sound a little shallow, but I just find it easier to like cheat if it's in black and white. Like, in filmmaking, like cheating isn't a bad thing. Sometimes you have to like move a table a little bit further away from the wall, and no one and the way that you shoot it, like no one's really gonna know. I just find it easier in black and white to get away with more of those things. And obviously, you know, my film has a special effects like cloning aspect going on. And I'd never really done that in like a whole movie before. Like I did some tests beforehand, but nothing like large scale. So yeah, it was sort of a logistical decision, but also like I just like the look of black and white. I think, you know, from a technical standpoint, just worrying about like exposed or not exposed is a lot easier than like all the colors and like, you know, what do the colors mean and all that stuff. So yeah, like I do a lot of photography in black and white. This is like this is my second like independent film. The first one was also in black and white, and then I did like some student films in school in like black and white and sepia and stuff. So to me, like it's not as striking, I guess, because I'm kind of used to it. But yeah, that's my reasoning.
Yeah. Any other people want to respond to that question if it strikes you? I like what you just said about sort of it makes it simpler. Like you said, it's cheating, it makes it easier. But I also think it's like, well, what is sort of this, what can I do to simplify this, right? To remove some of the distractions, to, you know, to not have to analyze, you know, color saturation choices, but to kind of hone the viewer's eye on like what's important.
Yeah, worked out.
Yeah, I think
go for it.
Something quick. Yeah, so I totally get like the black and white, just like because if you shot it on multiple days, then things could totally be different. And then like with my film, it was the fact that everything was shot on the phone, but like I didn't want to turn it sideways and it wouldn't be able to like fit in the frame. So I just shot it vertically because most of the stuff was shot that way. And making it kind of something that would be easy to share on social media was what I wanted to get pictured.
Yeah. Any other, to get extra long pauses for possible answers before I move on in virtual space. We have one question that came in from the internet audience, which is from Malika, who some of you may know from Greater Together. But she asked, first, she says she's really interested in hearing more about Isaac's next project on that storyboard behind you that I pointed out. But more broadly, for those of you who are working on new projects, whether they're film or not, she's wondering how this experience and this project and making this particular film changed how you look for stories. And I might add, how did it change maybe what you're looking for in the stories that you want to tell through whatever medium that you might tell them, whether that's music or arguing for people's rights and being their advocate, or film, or any of these forms.
Guess I'll hop in here again. Yeah, the storyboard back here, it's not I don't know if I'm ready to share it quite yet, but you know, it's almost like an expansion of what I did with Asking Nothing of Nobody, like again, some of the logistical elements, like I'm sort of seeing myself repeat. Like I have 3 characters again. You know, I'm kind of like trying to tell it in a contained space, and I'm trying to really like experiment and see like how much of a story can I convey in this one room, basically. So yeah, I'm also, I guess, to sort of answer the like second question in conjunction with like the first one, Asking Nothing of Nobody for me was like a very personal experience, which Damar can like testify to. Like the way that I wrote the story and like what I wrote it about and the sequence of events and, you know, everything down to like the name even, in one way or another, like really closely relates to my heart. And I guess in this next film, like the thing I learned from Asking Nothing of Nobody is, that even though I'm sharing so much of like a personal experience, that's not necessarily what everyone's gonna see. And I think it does something really cool where like me trying to get like really deep and emotionally like vulnerable kind of like opens up the floodgates for other people to sort of interpret their own meanings from the film, and sort of take something different or slightly different away than what I was thinking of when I wrote it. And I really like that. And I was nervous. I was terrified of like releasing this and being like, what if everyone's gonna like think of me differently? And they didn't. They sort of just reflected on their own lives. And the next film, I'm hoping to like double down on that aspect and like really, figure out who I am and my weaknesses, my strengths, stuff like that, and really just get into my own business and see what next story I guess like evolves from that. So yeah, I'm done talking now.
Other filmmakers?
I'm really actually getting into songwriting. This is my first time ever writing a song. I've been singing since the age of 7, and I've been involved in the performing arts, I'd say since elementary school, so around 10 or so. But it was my first instance creating a song. But I have so many other passions for the arts, and I believe that the arts can tell so many stories, which is why it's so passionate to me, because I believe that this is a universal language. Any kind of medium of art can really connect to people. I actually draw and do art. I actually want to show you some art that I did yesterday based on a poem. So I like to draw. I'm not a professional dancer, but I like to dance. But I think that all forms of art are just as important as the other, as far as when it comes to expressing yourself and narrating a story. I think it can be very powerful. And I like doing it and in as many ways as I can.
I definitely agree with what Aya said. Just being able to make art in your own type of way is very important. And like I said, I'm not the best. I feel like I love what I do, and I'm definitely not the best at what I do, but I'm definitely going to work on improving my skills and what I was brought here to do. And if that's helping someone else or just, seeing whatever you can do in the community is the most important part. Like, you're getting your message out there no matter how you're saying it.
Other filmmakers want to comment on kind of this question about changes or change, but maybe deepening? It sounds like for Isaac, it was well, I'm just going to go deeper in this direction from this experience. But changes in how you're looking for the stories that you want to tell or that you want to share, regardless of medium, as we're sort of thinking about these cross arts.
For me, so I'm a journalism major, and for that, I'm very much a storyteller in a print medium, and I've kind of gotten into a rut with that, and this has kind of given me the confidence to branch out of that. And despite a lack of experience or a lack of professional equipment, or it's just inspired me to just create, and I love that.
Mm-hmm. And so more documentary form kind of, I'm hoping what you're saying here is it sort of reinvigorated your creative spark, maybe in print, and maybe you found kind of that foil of well, what would it look like if I told this story visually? What does it look like when I tell it in writing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a good reminder, I think, sort of how can you turn, even if you don't, you're I'm not a professional, I'm not good at X form of art, but using it to sort of reignite something back in a different modality is a good reminder for us all. Julian, do you want to weigh in on this question, or are you going to pass?
Yeah, I can talk about this a bit. I mean, similar but not similar to what everyone else is kind of saying here. Film is kind of like a second medium of art for me. Music is definitely my number one here. So kind of figuring out how to combine both of them, especially through this project, is I think definitely a good idea for me, because I feel like in today's day and age, especially on like social media and all these other marketing platforms, like if you're going to express yourself and what you're putting out to the fullest, like even sometimes having like videos to accompany, definitely helps, because it sort of, and I guess it's sort of what I also look for too. But you know, when you hear a song, I mean, you get all the aural signals there. But when you can like visually see someone playing the part, or just telling a story, it invokes like a whole another set of senses and emotions for you. And so I think that's a really cool thing that I would like to incorporate more with my songs, so that they can sort of tell like a story, sonically but also visually.
I'm inspired to have the 5 of you, but maybe the 8 of you, make a project together. Like, I am in my brain, I am imagining the feature film that the 5 of you are working on in like 5 years. That just in my brain. I'm just going to put that in the universe in case it happens. Questions that filmmakers have for one another, or that mentors have for filmmakers that they may not have worked with directly. Open up internally.
I mean, I want to add like how I see all the topics and, you know, what everybody picked up to make a film about. I feel like they're all important topics, especially like the toxic masculinity, you know, being somewhere in the middle, the anxiety issues in the communities, all this stuff. It's all important stuff that, you know, in this time of age, maybe overlooked a bit. So it's something that we definitely need to get out there, you know, and it's great to see these young people have such open minds, you know.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments, thoughts, questions across the group? We have 5 minutes, but we can wrap a little early, but I don't want to cut off if there's a burning question and you're just behind the mute wall.
I'd like to maybe piggyback off of what Julian said a little bit. Like, I don't know, when he was saying that, it just sort of brought to my mind the fact that like I got a film degree, but I don't think I really think of myself exclusively as a filmmaker. It's almost like I'm a writer, and then film is just like the medium that I choose to convey what I write through, if that makes sense. You know, like the things that I like about film are like I love the clicks and words. And I love figuring out like creative ways to cheat, and like work around the environment that you're in, you know, no matter how small or large. And you know, I love trying to figure out how to tell the story in whatever environment that you're in with whoever's around. And so far, like that's what my films have been. Just very much me getting together like friends or, you know, classmates or whatever, and just kind of like getting together on the weekend and doing whatever we can do. And I don't know, I think looking at it like more as a writer and I guess more as an artist, like before being a filmmaker, it's just kind of like what everybody else has said, that, you know, you sort of like pick a medium to communicate through, but that medium like isn't all that you are. And, you know, when you look at it more as yourself being an artist, then whatever your chosen medium is, then you can express yourself in more than one way. And that they all kind of tie back to that main, I don't know, whatever idea that you're trying to get at through all of your art. And I've just found that, exploring other mediums like, music or, wet art, like painting or drawing or whatever, those have kind of helped me find new things to write about, find new angles to talk about some of the things that I'm feeling, and just sort of find new ways to convey them through film and through, that medium of storytelling. So I don't know, not really a question, but I was just kind of inspired by what Julian said.
I had a mentor, my mentor that I took yoga and art from. When we started, we were in a group of 30 people who were visual artists, and I was the only poet, the only writer. And my thought was, well, I'm a writer. Like, I don't draw. I'm not a good drawer. I'm not I don't make things with my hands. I'm a writer. I'm a spoken word artist. And I started to try what Isaac, what Julian, what you're saying is, I tried illustration and I tried making mandalas and I tested out all these different aspects. And what I came away from, and what I'll say to you guys, is that you are multi-artisanal. You're multi-artisanal, which means you have the ability within you, all of us as humans, we contain multitudes, as Walt Whitman says. You contain multitudes and you are multi-artisanal. So enjoy trying different things and inspiring your video making with your music, and your music being inspired by photography. And I think it's so incredible to see all of you that you were courageous and vulnerable enough to share something of yourself with the world. And that's the best thing we can give the world, is a piece of ourselves.
I love that. I also love that film brings together so many arts. And sometimes that happens through one maker, and sometimes that happens through a collaboration that, kind of goes beyond what any one person can do. But sort of having the visual and the audio and the musical, and that the visual can be any range of kinds of image, real, fantastical, illustrated. It's one of the joys of getting to share video and media with folks. I'm going to have us wrap up for the evening. I'm going to encourage all of you filmmakers. You are filmmakers because you have made a film. That is what makes you a filmmaker. A done film makes you a filmmaker. Congratulations. You are on one, having that film done in the world. And thank you for sharing your work, your art, your stories, yourselves with our audiences, with one another, with the world. And I'm going to remind folks that may have creative ideas that Milwaukee Film is currently open for submissions for the festival that's happening next year in the spring virtually. So it's free to submit. You can find out information on our website. We really want to keep elevating local stories, new voices, as best we can continue to. And if you know some high schoolers who want to get into telling stories using film, we're opening our high school filmmaking course that starts in January. More information on our website. I just got to plug opportunities to kind of continue doing this kind of learning and growing and showcasing of work. Thank you all once again, and congratulations on completing your work. Have a great night, everybody.